like from home now and like trying to come up with a solution.
Yeah. Well,
So it's
this, yeah.
yeah. So I think it's a good time for people to start. To start like their own business or like side business at the very least. Because a lot of
Yeah.
people are like off for the 3 weeks or have lost their jobs now. I'm not sure like how it is stateside, but I believe that they've also closed down and a lot of people have lost their jobs, especially like high-end developers. By the
Yeah.
sounds of it, for like pretty big companies, and so I guess a lot of people now are trying to like take that leap of being the entrepreneur slash
Yeah.
coming up with some solution that they don't have to depend on someone else for.
Yeah. No, well, I hope this helps because this talk sort of focuses on how to get started from like square one.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So just to give you a little bit of a preview,
We
uh,
just a quick thing. We are live. I'm just checking it. So it's just like a pre. We'll start at 7, but I am
okay.
streaming at the moment.
Uh,
Yeah, just a heads up.
okay. No, then I won't do the preview then.
Okay.
Um,
I know a
yeah.
little
Again,
bit of what you wanted to touch on. So
yeah. So I'll hit record at 7
yeah, that's
and
great.
officially begin at 7.
Hmm.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I heard Slack had a record quarter or something like that. Like most, I was following a thread by Stuart Butterfield on Twitter, who's the Slack CEO, and
Oh yeah,
he
I saw
shared
that
his
as well.
whole he shared his whole like experience over the past month and how crazy it is that people are signing up for Slack on such a rate. It's weird, but I guess
Yeah.
it's the whole remote people moving remote, and it is a
Mm.
tool you can use in enterprise. So a lot of people
Yeah,
are.
definitely. Like my one friend, he works for quite a big international company, and they've got offices in Durban. And the Durban branch has, I think he said, around 2,000 employees, and
Wow.
and so like they're going remote now. So you can imagine like, although they're not doing Slack, they kind of what I heard is like they're with Microsoft, I believe, like Microsoft Teams and stuff. So I mean,
Oh
if
yeah,
you can imagine the license that they would kind of need, um,
yeah, that's
you know.
crazy. Yeah. Okay. Just getting a few things ready.
Yeah, sure. Kuba said Slack has a good promo. He thinks so. There might be a discounted rates on the plus version.
Oh yeah, I'll have a
Hmm.
look at that.
Yeah, I'm just gonna keep an eye on the time. There's about 10 minutes. We can let people start joining, and we can. I don't know if anyone has any questions. We can, you know, answer them while we wait.
Yeah, I can't see the questions.
Yeah, I'll just pop them up if like I'll ask them on behalf of whoever's typing it.
So there's a Slack channel that you're using for questions.
I'm kind of streaming to myself with the live chat on YouTube. So
Okay,
I'm
cool.
watching the chats on that. I did ask
Okay.
some sorry, I did ask some people to watch the Slack channels just in case. Um,
Oh, cool.
yeah, so we're gonna try this. It's the first time we're streaming. Um, so my internet should hold up. I've got pretty decent fiber. Um, Hopefully it does stay up.
Yeah, yeah, I'm
Awesome.
sure it'll be fine.
Yeah, welcome, Jonathan. He says he's streaming from DC. So I hope everything's going good that side, um, with the whole coronavirus outbreak and stuff. Um,
Jonathan Bossinger or?
Jonathan Taylor. I know
Oh,
he's been
okay.
to the Joburg Meetup a couple of times.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay, cool. Hi.
yeah. I hope the sound's okay. Sounds okay. Yeah,
Great.
cool. Yeah. do you have any plans for this lockdown, for this 3 weeks?
Um, well, I'm hoping to, obviously our team is still working remotely, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping to, in whatever downtime I have, do some Udemy tutorials on Flutter specifically, which is
Oh
something
yeah.
I've been playing around with a lot. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so I'm
actually,
hoping to do that.
I actually grabbed a Flutter course. It was one recommended by the Google development team. It's with like a lady
Hmm.
that's the instructor. Because I
Hmm.
also wanted to play around with Flutter because like it's always cool. Like for me, I want to like build an app. You know, it's like I don't
Yeah.
know. It's just something about an app where you're like, yeah, I built an app. It's kind of cool. So I'm also gonna dive into that, hopefully. But it's still normal work routine for us. It's the one
Yeah.
plus. So it's the one plus of being remote and I guess doing a product based business or like a SaaS business in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And Travis I saw his wife got in just in time as well. So
Yeah,
I'm glad for them.
yeah. She landed on Tuesday and she was coming from Australia, so she's in self isolation slash quarantine for the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
Like like they kind of rented another house for like the 2 week period, like an Airbnb or whatever. Just so
Oh,
they're
cool.
not together. So they're separate for the next 2 weeks.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, so it's pretty
But at least,
crazy. It's pretty crazy at the moment.
yeah, I'm glad she just got in time.
Yeah, because neighbors of ours, their father came from the UK, and it was just before like this whole like coronavirus is in SA or whatever. And I think he's stuck here now, like until things clear up a bit. So it must
Yeah.
suck to be stuck in another country, and
Yeah.
you you're not in the comfort of your own home at least. So we're pretty grateful that we're at least here.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Um, Alright, there's still another like 5 minutes. Let people. I see some people are joining. So yeah, we can talk about whatever we want. We can talk about WordPress. We can talk about coronavirus. I don't know anything.
Well, I mean, I think I'd like to work. Some WordPress would be nice. A nice change
Yeah,
of talk.
yeah. I've been
Well, I
trying to
mean,
avoid the social media, just because everything is coronavirus, and it can put a strain on you.
yes, absolutely.
It's all like a lot of negative uh, news at the moment, unfortunately. Um, and I think it's just a bit stressful at this time because you don't really know what's going to happen. Like, it's 3 weeks now, but is it going to be longer, So I think this talk was good for more than like just one reason, and that's also to take our mind off the current situation.
Yeah, I think it's good to stay informed, but like checking the news several times a day is probably not helpful for your
Yeah,
stress levels. So,
definitely.
you have to find a balance somewhere in between, completely ignoring the news, but also not checking it like 5 to 10 times a day.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Um, Yeah, but
yeah,
stay at home for the next 3 weeks, learn some new programming stuff, some new skills, I guess, and then take it
yeah.
from there.
Flutter is one of the things I'm learning, but also, and I'm going to talk about a certain product in this presentation that I'm working on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's AR, dabbling with the AR stuff
Oh,
still.
cool, cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's just so cool.
yeah, that's really
It's getting
cool.
so much better. Yeah, and there's a new iPad out now which
Mm-hmm.
has a lidar
Okay.
in the camera instead of so it doesn't just rely on the cameras to find, to map the
The
3D
points, yeah.
environment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it uses this lidar, and the accuracy, it's like, so it doesn't ask you to point the camera around anymore, so it can sort of
Oh,
calibrate
that's
itself. It
cool.
just immediately works, and it's like super accurate. So I think what's going to happen is in the future, all devices, cell phones, everything will have this lidar.
Yeah.
If augmented reality becomes like a super important
Hmm.
thing, which I think it will. I think it will.
Yeah,
Well, I
it's
hope it
it's
will.
it's definitely a growing what would you call it, like a feature. I've seen a lot of apps doing AR now, um, and I think it could be useful in terms of like education space, especially
Oh yeah.
I heard someone wanted to build an app for mechanics where it would kind of map the engine. So for example, if you wanted to change the radiator, it will show you like where to unscrew, where to close, where to like lift it, and then slot the new one in.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
yeah. So a similar one for aircraft mechanics.
yeah.
So
Um,
that like checklists and stuff when you install this part with like how to install it. It's
yeah,
pretty
that
cool.
that's gonna be the new like how to videos on YouTube. You're gonna download an
Yeah.
app and then just AR like to whatever you need to do, which would be pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ansi says hello. Hey Ansi, glad
Hello.
we were just saying that we're glad you made it back into SA just in time.
Mm.
Cool. So there's currently 13 people on. We've got 5 more minutes. If anyone has any questions for Ivan or myself, or I don't know, anything from Flutter to WordPress development, you can ask, and then you'll answer it.
Yeah. You'll just pass the questions to me on Slack or something, right?
Yeah,
But,
I'll ask them during the talk
cool.
when like if there's a bit of a
Cool.
gap. I'll try not to cut you off. It is difficult because we're kind of doing like an online call, so it is like we will overlap a little bit.
No, that's
Um,
cool.
yeah, yeah. So I'll just try to flag you down. And yeah, if anyone wants to grab coffee or drink or something, you got 5 minutes. We'll start at 7. Give everyone a fair chance to come through. Yeah. Hey Femi, how's it going? Cool. So we got people from Joburg, Cape Town.
Oh,
GC.
Femi. Hi.
Yeah, Femi's
How's it,
there.
man? I
Got
can't
someone
hear
from
you, but
DC.
good to know that you're still around.
Still around the WordPress race.
Mhm.
Yeah, so the idea is just to touch base on like the WordPress meetups. We kind of partnering with the Cape Town guys, and
Mhm.
we kind of gonna be doing like a WordPress South Africa meetup because necessarily you're watching remotely. You don't have to attend a physical location, so it's a lot easier for anyone to just like stream in, watch it later. Um, so we're going to
Yeah.
be doing a lot more talks from people all over South Africa. We'll support the WordPress Cape Town guys when they're on, and then they'll support us on this channel when we're doing something. I think it's also a good time in the next 3 weeks to do a lot more content, even if it's just video uploads. Like we could do like podcasts or stuff like that. So that's the
Yeah,
idea
absolutely.
behind that, especially for the lockdown. So if anyone has
Mhm.
any like requests of topics or want to be like share a video, like a presentation kind of like this, yeah, reach out to us. And then yeah, we can get stuff going. Cool, 2 more minutes, and then we can do it.
Yeah, I saw an email going out from Jonathan Bossinger today
Hmm.
asking for a call for speakers. So
Oh, awesome.
yeah, yeah, I hope to see some interesting stuff come up on the calendar.
Yeah, definitely. Unfortunately, this year WordCamp Joburg's been moved back to 2021. Um, we made that decision with the WordPress community team. We didn't want to do all that work of organizing an event and then it would still be cancelled because we're just not sure how long this virus thing is going to go around, and we don't want to take the risk of like maybe it goes away and comes back and then we have to cancel
Yeah,
the
good
event
call.
anyway. So we'll probably aim for early Feb March for the next WordCamp Joburg. So there's just an update on that. Cool, 1 minute. So I guess I could start. There's 17 people that have joined. So welcome to everyone. Thanks for taking the time out to watch this live with Ivan. Firstly, I just want to thank the sponsors of the meetup. They've stuck around with us, and I thought it would be worthy to mention them because they would have sponsored us if we had it at a venue anyway. So I just want to thank PayFast, Xneelo, FlickerLeap, and uAfrica for being the sponsors of the WordPress Joburg Meetup, and their support that we can actually, host these awesome events when we do them in person. So yeah.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah. All right. So it's 7. I think we can start. So yeah, we're gonna be doing the riches are in the niches or niches with WordPress with Ivan. Ivan, I think you can just introduce yourself and explain, do your introduction. I think it'll come better from you than from me. So take it away, Ivan.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you so much, Andrew, and welcome everyone. Thank you so much, especially for joining us in this time. I'm sure a lot of people are, running around and trying to get things organized tonight. So we do appreciate you attending. So the talk today is titled "The Riches Are in the Niches," and I'm using the American expression of the word niches as opposed to the word niches, just because it rhymes. So if you prefer to say riches are in the niches, that's fine. I just like to say riches are in the niches because that rhymes, and it just kind of works for the story. So this is a talk. So let me just go on to the next slide. Okay. So it's a talk, and I'll do the introduction next, sorry. So I just want to quickly mention the topics we're going to talk about. So we're going to acknowledge, first of all, the difficulty of actually building something that lasts and works well. Because I've found, when you read, I consume, and I'm sure a lot of you consume a lot of podcasts and other like YouTube videos and other media that talks about, bootstrapping a startup or building something. And it almost, like when you listen to that, it sounds, it motivates you because it sounds very doable. But I do want to acknowledge, it's like sometimes a bit of a struggle to get this going. So the reason why I wanted to do this talk is to sort of make it much more step-by-step and digestible to get from an idea in your head or something that you're just getting started to something that's actually working and sustaining you. So that's one of the points that we're going to talk about. And then we just want to talk about the mindset of like a bootstrap entrepreneur, freelancer, in this WordPress space. I guess we're all part of the gig economy, or a lot of us are part of this gig economy, and why we choose to do this to ourselves. I just want to talk about, explore that mindset a bit. And then I want to talk about a process to make goals seem far more achievable and actually possible for a single person or a small team to accomplish. And this is that trying to break away from just like, say, no, do SEO or do this and one day it'll work out. More like I want to talk about more digestible, step-by-step steps that you can implement to get things going. I just want to mention, this is not going to be like a technical tutorial. Oops. This is going to be more of a high-level overview, but there is WordPress content in here, don't worry. So, and we're going to look at some examples so that we can see some of this theory in practice. Okay, so about me. My name is Ivan. I love WordPress, so I've been going to, I missed the last year's WordCamps, unfortunately, but I've been, ever since I went to I think it was the very first WordCamp Joburg I went to. I've just been trying to get to as many of these events and spend time on the Slack channel and I just enjoy the community, and I also enjoy the product. It's like a really awesome project. It's very different from everything else on the internet because it's like 30% of the whole web, but it's open source and it's not like this corporate thing. So what I've done, my experience in working with WordPress and websites and technology in general. Is founded a company called We Manage Your Site. It's like a WordPress maintenance company. Back in 2017, there weren't too many of those. That's changed. And I also co-founded a company called NBG Media, a company we founded in 2015. And happy to say we grew to 15 full-time members. We were at 15 full-time members at the beginning of this year. So that's doing really well. And that's our agency. So we focus on building WordPress sites and apps and other things. But majority of the work is WordPress sites. And I'm working on another project which we'll go into in detail on in the talk itself. And I just like to play around with things like Flutter and React. And I'm also a Firebase fanboy. So if you need to get in touch with me, there's a resource web page that I've made that I'll share at the end of this talk, where you can get the slides, where you can download some of the resources I'm going to talk about, and where you can get in touch with me. All right. So let's begin. So this talk was originally going to happen, in person at FlickerLeap. So I was the very first thing I wanted to ask, but I guess we can just continue, is what are you busy with? I'm always interested to find out, like, people in this WordPress space, like, what are you working on? It's usually quite surprising what sort of businesses people can build around a platform that was originally just like a blogging thing. And so what are you busy with and why is the questions we're just going to look at. So why did you or are you starting this blog or website or even YouTube channel or something that's not exactly WordPress? Like, why did you start it? And what does the win scenario look like? So for many people, the typical story is, I started this thing on the side because I want freedom and I want to travel the world and live this digital nomad lifestyle. Or people start their own businesses because they want, more. They want more comfort in their lives and for their families. So each person's win scenario does look a little bit different, and that's a unique thing. So why, for you, do you want to build this project, but also what the end goal is? So that's what we're going to explore a little bit today as well. So I'm gonna pin it down on one. I think we can all boil it down to a single reason in my worldview, at least, is we have dreams. So it can either be, an aspirational young entrepreneur who sees himself, at the top of his career or his industry, or it can be somebody who dreams of, living completely location independent on a beach in Thailand or something, and earning money through online activities only. So I think dreams is the root. Like, it begins with a dream. You don't usually just start doing something. It has to start from something deep, and I think dreams are the root driver still behind everything, and that's awesome. That's one of the things I sort of enjoy most about, if you think about people, is like every person has like this hidden story that they want to make real. So I'm gonna make a theoretical example here of this journey somebody goes through, and it's gonna start by a character called Jim. So this is Jim. He's sitting in his home and he's watching Netflix. I made this slide before this lockdown stuff, but it sort of works out, I guess.
Yeah.
So Jim is sitting at his TV and he's looking at Netflix, and he thinks to himself, like, wow, Netflix, it's like pretty cool company. It suddenly like a few years ago, you never heard of Netflix. There was only like DSTV, and then so he researched Netflix over here, and he's like, well, what I want to, one day have my own company, just like Netflix, and he begins to dream, so he starts to dream, and he thinks, when your dreams run away from you sometimes, and you're like, yes, if only I could be uh, Jeff Bezos, for example, or maybe he dreams of being this super successful executive like Marissa Mayer, or maybe he dreams like maybe one day I want to be as rich and successful and influential as Mark Zuckerberg. Um, but let's uh, let's uh, let's explore that a bit. So he's like, you know what? I am going to also do a streaming service just like Netflix. So that's his idea, right? He's going to create a streaming service, and he's going to take on Netflix, right? And he understands. Okay, I understand. This is going to be a bit of a challenge, So, I'm just one guy, and I'm going to take on Netflix. But it's sort of a David and Goliath idea, right? So he knows it's going to be a challenge, but he's got all the buzzwords, like determination and passion and self-discipline and believe in yourself. And yeah, so he's encouraged. He's going to do this. And he's got some experience with programming, or he knows a programmer. So it is a hurdle, but it's just a very big hurdle, right? I mean, if I'm sure you've heard so many people say, oh, you know what, if you just believe in yourself enough, you can do it no matter what you try to achieve. But I just want to, relook at this a little bit, because in reality, um, let me like, I don't know, this was again going to be in a classroom setting, but do you think Jim is going to succeed with his idea?
Yeah, I'll
Um,
be the classroom for you, and I'll give my opinion, I guess.
yeah,
um,
that's cool.
so this is actually a really good example, and I don't think he would be successful personally, um,
Yeah,
because Netflix holds quite a big market share. Like
yeah,
I'm not even going to include like Hulu, HBO, Disney Plus, whatever. Um,
yeah, exactly.
and I've been in the same space where you think of an idea or an app or a service, and you're like, but I have to go against that Netflix, or I have to go against Amazon, and I'm just one
Yeah, exactly.
person. So I'm gonna say no. And I'm guessing most
Okay.
of the people that are watching is gonna say no.
Okay, awesome. Well, yeah, you guessed right, in my opinion too. Because in reality, this is not what it looks like. In reality, this is Jim, and that's Netflix. So he's not really gonna. I mean, if you really think about it, the difference is even bigger. So I would advise Jim not to do this just right off the bat. But does that mean that his idea is just unfeasible and he should give up? Or does it mean that he should think of a different idea that's also huge that can change the world? And this is something I see a lot, like uh, people see, people try to think of big ideas and always think of the end result first as this very large sort of place that they want to get to. And it's just a matter of thinking of the next big thing. But I think a logically safe assumption you can make is that nothing new there's nothing new under the sun. Um, I don't think in a population of I think it's like 7.7 billion people, each of those thinking hundreds of ideas a day, it's very unlikely that you're going to think of something that's huge that nobody else has thought before. So I don't know how it happens. I'm just in my worldview, I just logically assume that there are no more like huge ideas that will just come to me if I think hard enough. So, but that doesn't mean you have to give up on your big dreams. Then there are emerging opportunities. So people people often think, okay, well, if I want this big dream and I just need to get there, I just need to ride the next big wave, the next big thing. And this is something that I want to actually delve a little bit into, because there's an example of this happening. So in the early 2000s, there was a rush of people getting into the clean tech market. So, like green energy companies. I'm not sure if many people have heard of the clean tech bubble, but that's what happened. So a lot of people were looking for the next big thing, and somewhere this clean tech bubble sort of started to emerge. And I mean, I absolutely love companies like Tesla and Solar City and stuff. Don't get me wrong, but there was a huge bubble in the early 2000s of people getting into this clean tech space, and that's where that thinking of just finding the next big trend came from, and it has to be huge, and we need to get on it now. So there's typical advantages that people see when they're trying to ride the next big wave, and that is, firstly, that's a new thing, so novelty. Back in the early 2000s, clean tech was still seen as sort of a new thing, so many people were throwing money at it and jumping into it. But actually, the number one thing that, and this is the thing that really that I want to focus on is, have you ever heard somebody discuss a business idea and it's like, the market's huge, it's a huge market. If we can only get 0.1% of the market, then we'll be super rich. So of course it's going to be easy, right? And I'm not sure, like, tell me if you've heard that before about like somebody discussing a business idea, or considering getting into a new business and referencing the market size and saying, well, the market's so huge, we just need a tiny little slice of the pie and we'll win. But actually, and there's an enormous upside potential. So this doesn't work. This actually, you can safely write that idea off. And the reason this doesn't work is a concept that I'm going to talk about called oceans. So I'm just going to proceed. So let's talk about oceans. There's a famous book called Blue Ocean Strategy that it's a bit of a corporate book, actually. It's like, it came out in 2005, and it talks about this very topical. One of the topics that it talks about is huge markets and people trying to compete in very large markets, and the ideas fail because trying to start, especially for a person trying to start a new company, or a new idea, or a new, it can be anything. It can be a YouTube channel or a blog or a business. It doesn't matter. When you're just trying to be a me too and enter a huge market, you're trying to boil the ocean. It's like, it's very, very difficult to do. And the other thing about oceans are they're filled with sharks. So this is a concept explored in a book called Red Oceans. So competitions in these very large markets destroys profits completely. So a very good example, and this is something the Blue Ocean Strategy doesn't specifically mention airlines, but there's a speaker who wrote a book called Zero to One. I think it's Peter Thiel, talks about airlines and how the intense competition in this massive industry has basically destroyed the profits. And I mean, before this crisis, airlines were already like not really a great business to be in. Especially, well, I'm talking specifically the US airline market. There was like very, very low profits. If you take a look at the entire history of the US airline industry, they basically made no money yet. So not great. And it's to make any sort of dent in a very large market, where it's pretty, like when you're trying to start a business, there's two ways you can do it. You can be extremely lucky. So you can, it does happen. Somebody starts something and it seems like chance that they just sort of become a success. Or you can be extremely wealthy, like Jeff Bezos, and if he wants to enter a new industry, he just pours billions of dollars into it, and then there you go. So I wouldn't bet on either of those two conditions to start a new business. So something that's explored in the book is actually called blue oceans. So moving away from red oceans to blue oceans, which means uncontested market space. So escape competition and create value. So we're going to dive. That sounds like such a high level, vague topic, but I'll dive into it. Craft something that only you can do. So this is getting more into the meat of it. So something that you specifically as a person can bring to the world. And I'm going to show you how awesome that is in a second. And the book also talks about value innovation. You know, if you don't have to compete in these massive markets, and you find your own little market niche, it's vastly less expensive to get going, and it decreases your risk and increases the value to your customers. And I'll show you why that is. So my advice for anybody just like starting out anything is like forget huge markets. You know, just try to find your special niche market, and that's what we call the obtainable. So I just use a shorthand for this is be weird, and I'll explain that in a second. So identify very specific market segments or niches, and this then becomes your buyer persona. So you find out a specific market that focuses on a specific subject or interest, or it can be anything, and then you obsess over this person, like forget the rest and obsess only about this one sort of buyer persona, and get to know this personality deeply. And we'll get to examples, and you'll see. And very important, like in today's world, finding interest groups or things that people are passionate about that are obscure is a good thing. You know, you don't want, if you market to an interest group or something that's too generic, you immediately find yourself back in the red ocean. So special interest generates passion in people as well, which we'll also explore a bit, but and you'll see some examples, and it's not a requirement, but if you yourself, the business owner, if you're already passionate about something, and when I say passionate, I'm not talking about I'm passionate for success or I'm passionate to make my dreams come true. I'm talking about, you know, if you are passionate about vintage Lego, you know, that's a thing. That's don't discount that weird thing that you like, because there might be an opportunity there. So yeah, let's relook at our
If,
yeah.
sorry, Ivan. There was just a question that came up from Stranger Studios. Ivan, how
Mm-hmm.
do you identify these niches? Is it market research, a hunch, or personally know a small group or be part of a community?
Well, I this last point helps. It's usually, and I have an example a little bit later in my talk, but I would begin with what you as a human like and are interested in, and that may not necessarily always have an opportunity, but I I have, in my own experience, have found with myself and my wife, we have our interests, and if we just look deeply enough, we can find like online communities and stuff to that we sort of can connect with, that sort of helps. But I understand, like you may not necessarily have a niche when you start your business. So that is something that I'm gonna dive into in a little bit of a later slide. Um, but I guess you would know it when you see it. Like
Mm-hmm.
if I was a vintage Lego enthusiast, but I didn't make any sort of business out of that. Like I would start at your own life, and then maybe people in your life. In the example I'm going to use later, my wife was the was the one that led us onto our new project. So I begin with yourself and then your surrounding people. But it doesn't have to be. I mean, you can, if you see an opportunity in an online community, I would recommend that you just go with your hunch, like you said, and exploit that or explore that. Not exploit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that does make sense because, like you said, if you were a vintage Lego collector, the next step you would go, with that hobby or interest, you'd probably go online and like search for something, like-minded people. You'll go to Reddit, you'll try to find a forum, or something like that, and then you would actually probably notice the gap in the market. Like, hey, there's no one. Let me start a community, or
Yeah.
get a business model from that.
Yeah, and absolutely. And in the example, you'll see. Let me get to that, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
I'll
Sorry,
circle
we
back to that question.
we we kind of like stealing from the later
100%.
slides.
No, cool. Please
Cool.
send your questions. I welcome it.
All right.
So let's go back to our original example, Jim, who wanted to start a streaming service. So let's reframe his thinking and relook at the original goal. And the way we do that is, let's just say, like, look at his win scenario. Maybe he wanted to do that just because he wanted comfort, wealth, and freedom, and it doesn't necessarily have to be all three. It can be, it can be any of those goals. But in our example, he just wanted to do that. So I don't think you needed to start like a gigantic company to achieve that. So it's about reframing the way you look at your goal. And I use this sunglass example because the way I find, I'm at least in my life, I found you need two sort of components to this. You need a niche market, and you need a recurring revenue business model. The reason is a niche market, you won't necessarily have thousands of customers. So relying on repeat business with a small customer base isn't a very sustainable business model. But if you build your business with a recurring revenue model in mind, then you can truly build towards achieving this. And I'll explore the first part of this sunglass in my next. So back to Jim's example. So if we look at our fictional character here, I would ask him and this goes exactly into the question you asked earlier. So what are your interests? What do you do for fun? Maybe let's start there. And in our example, Jim likes fishing. So, okay, yeah, does that mean we found his niche? I would say no, because there's like hundreds of millions of people in the world who like fishing. So I would go a little bit deeper than that and say, okay, well, Jim lives in Gauteng and doesn't fish in the sea. He only fishes for freshwater. And say, okay, well, sure, that sort of narrows the audience a little bit. But what we really want to get into is like something super specific. So it's like, okay, the favorite species of fish that our fictional character Jim likes to catch is called carp. I think this is what it looks like. I think that's a photo I got from National Geographic of this species of fish. And so let's use this as an example. And funny thing, this is actually a real person I'm basing Jim on. But anyway, I'll continue. So okay, cool. We have his niche, right? So we've reframed our person Jim who wanted to start a streaming service. We have a niche, so let's explore that a bit. So he's got a much clearer picture now of his customer. So he's only going to care about customers who are freshwater carp fishing in South Africa, and suddenly that paints a much clearer picture of who his market is and who he's trying to talk to and reach. And because he's already doing this himself, that just makes it easy. So there's a book by Seth Godin called Tribes, and this leans quite a lot on that book as well, and his thinking about interest groups. So in our example, Jim now knows, okay, cool. We got going to focus. We're going to forget everybody else in the world. We're just going to worry about people who are interested in fishing this one species of fish in this country, and that makes it a lot easier to market to, because you can find exactly where these people are. So you can get started today. So a lot of times when people research, like let's say you started a website and people research, okay, how to market my service and how to market my website. It usually starts with content marketing, and that's great. I love content marketing. And they're like, okay, awesome. I want to do content marketing, get customers. And what Neil Patel doesn't always tell you is like, okay, well, be prepared to take like 6 months, maybe to a year, to start making an impact. So the way, if you really know who your group of people is, there are LinkedIn groups and Facebook groups that if he was already a passionate person in this niche, he would already be part of those anyway, and he would have already formed friendships online. But even if he didn't, and even if he's coming into this tribe or group from the outside, he would. I would start here. Of course, you would want to do content marketing, and since you do have a very specific niche that you're targeting, it's much easier to write long tail, like specific keywords for your blog than it is like if you wanted to just do a website on fishing. That would be a tall order to try and compete with some of the big fishing websites out there. But if he is talking just about this one species in this one area, he would rank for it pretty easily. And I talk, Jim is a fictional character, but I'm really talking about someone I know personally. So we've seen this work, definitely. If you do a very specific, super, like almost obscure niche, it becomes easy to rank for. And that content is far more interesting to your customers, your buyer persona, than what the big general companies can produce. So if a person in our example reads a fishing website about that now and then talks about this one species, but he really only cares about that. Well, if he finds a website that only talks about this, then you've got a dedicated fan, and that's the power of tribes. And it's a far more accomplishable goal. If you're trying to start a business and market your business, then it can seem intimidating to try and say, okay, well, I'm gonna do this marketing thing, and I'm gonna do blogging and do all these things, and then hopefully people are gonna come. Whereas if you approach it this way, you're like, I know who these people are, I know where they are. I'm gonna go where they are and start talking to them directly. And not in a spammy way, by the way. I think you first need to be in that community before you can just start spamming them. Or you should never start spamming them. But so I'll show you an example of this in what I myself am doing right now. Just because I also think it's effective if if a presenter or a speaker can actually share something like, I'm starting something now, so you guys may check in on me in a month or two and see how I'm doing. So I'll tell you a story. What we did is, so my wife's an industrial designer. She designs physical products like chairs and plastic containers and all sorts of things. So she uses like CAD software, and her current company is a furniture design company. And we at one point she asked, we really want to showcase our furniture designs at this expo, but we can't obviously can't get every piece there. So we saw the I think it was the IKEA app, and they were like, well, why can't we just upload our furniture pieces onto this app and showcase them in AR, because she's already designing them in CAD. So we did that. So we built a little app, and we called it, that's the name of the company. And it was just for this trade show. But then when we were at the trade show, meeting with people in this industry who are exactly like her company, and these are companies that are 5 to they average like 5 to 7 employees, small companies, but they're about like in South Africa, there are about 100 of them. Not a huge market. And they're all at this one trade show. And they were seeing this app and they were like, oh, cool. How did you get that? How did you get an app to showcase your furniture? We want an app like that for us. So that got us thinking, maybe we can target this specific niche. This is how we found, and again, circling back to that question, this is how we discovered, hey, there's a niche here. So we did some research and we said, well, this is South Africa, but because we work online, we're not necessarily limited to just one geographic area. So we did some research and we found, okay, cool. Almost all the industrial designers in the States are part of this LinkedIn group. And notice there's not like millions of people in this group. There's 24,510. So we even got a specific number. So we're like, okay, let's do exactly what we did for this niche. And we're working on a product now. Okay, well, this isn't actually launched yet. You'll find the app on the App Store, but the service isn't actually launched yet. So what I'm working on now, just as an example of me trying to find a niche and trying to create a solution for that very specific niche, is like an app that lets anyone like quickly design their own app and then upload their 3D models and then publish their own apps. And then we have this little app over here that you see on the right, just so you can like sort of test your CAD models before you upload them to your own app. And it's like an app builder, but it's specifically for AR. So the reason I'm showing you this is just because I wanted to walk you through that thinking or that thought process of, hey, there's a small group of a very specific interest group that we can help solve a certain problem with, and you can really build a business out of that. And you don't need a team of people. You can, I did this. Me and one other friend did this. So just to be clear, we were planning on launching this in May, but we might delay it a little bit due to this situation. But at the end of my talk, there's a resource page, and I plan to share my progress with this and sort of, experiment and see if you guys are interested to see if I can do this. Follow me and we'll see if it works. And notice that I do use the word try here, and that leads me into the next important thing when you try to create a very niche product is a lower cost of failure if you have small scope projects. There's this famous movie thing. It's like it's actually it's so tired already. It's like this famous thing where you have Yoda. I've seen it on lunchboxes and diaries and stuff, and like, do or do not. There is no try. Well, I actually think this is completely wrong. I don't think there is only do. I think part of life and part of business is experimenting and seeing what works and making your decisions, especially if you're a single person trying, and especially if you're trying to start it on the side and you don't have a capacity for a large amount of risk. Break your eventual dream down into small doable steps, so that if there are missteps, which happens, it's like sometimes things fail. You fail small, but if you win, you have the potential to win big. So I recommend, when you start something, look for small wins and experiment quickly, evaluate and then continue. So, and maybe don't take life advice from, a hand puppet in a movie. All right, let's look at an example, and this is actually surprising. So PayPal is a very well-known company, like hundreds of millions of users. But what a lot of people don't actually know is that this started out with a very niche market. When they started PayPal back in the late 90s, they didn't initially target like a giant, say, okay, we're going to start this business and we're going to become, the only place that does all online transactions. I'm sure it was in the back of their heads, but their initial strategy when when PayPal actually started to gain traction was to focus exclusively on a single group of people on eBay called power sellers. This is a group of about 18,000 people, and and they focused on this group and nothing else. And that was their entire strategy. And they only cared about this. Like, I'm sure that later on they started to care about adjacent markets, but their obsession, if you go and read the history, and there's a very good podcast by Reid Hoffman, because he was also involved in, like so many other famous tech people in the early days of PayPal, but they were really obsessed with eBay power sellers. That was it for them. And once established, they then grew and marketed to adjacent groups, and they didn't. They could, like, once they found success with a small group, they could then grow out into larger groups. So that doesn't mean if you have a small initial niche that you'll be forever limited to that niche. Let's look at another example. This is like a hugely surprising one. Is like one of the largest companies in the world, Microsoft, didn't actually set out with this goal of becoming one of the largest companies in the world. Their first product, or one of their first products, was a programming language for a super niche computer called the Altair, which was like, I'm sure people, like, there was an article about it. If you look at the history, they talk about this one article in Popular Mechanics where it talks about this computer, but it had no screen. It printed out things on paper. Like, I don't even know how you can call it a computer, but anyway. And they, in the first few months, sold 1,000 units at Altair, and later on that became 5,000 units a month. This is not the picture you have of Microsoft now. You see Microsoft as this, weird super entity that's almost that no one can relate to. But even this massive company started out with a niche market first, and then grew into opportunities that they could expand into from there. And that's a picture of that computer, by the way. That's it. I also was like, where's the screen? But that's apparently it. So it doesn't mean if you start out small, you're going to be limited to be small. But for some people, that's also fine. If you can build a business that sustains you, even if you have a small customer base and you have that win scenario, then you can be happy with that. And I know a guy in the Netherlands who built a very successful content website, also around fishing. And I keep circling back to that. Sorry, it's the people I hang out with. And he's living his best life. He's got a few thousand paid memberships, and he doesn't need more than that, and he's happy. So when you set out to try and launch something, there was originally the Kevin Kelly thing about all you need to do is get 1,000 true fans. And then later, Andreessen Horowitz, which is like some famous Silicon Valley investor, updated this to be 100 true fans. And I'll add the link to that article on the resources page at the end. But essentially, that's where you want to identify your niche market, and then you want to set out to get 100 people. Like when you start your business, just get that first like 100 people, and don't worry about anything else. So that's the first part of the frame, your niche market. But if you want to build a sustainable business, you also do need a recurring revenue model, and that's what I want to dive into next. So this is important because you can create a sustainable and predictable income with a small number of users. And I also want to add, this doesn't mean you're like exploiting them. If you have 100 super fans who love everything you do, and you talk to them every day, and you have relationship, you build relationships with people, and it's a rare opportunity. Like, let's say your business one day becomes too big for you to talk to every customer. That's something you actually lose when you get too big. When you stay small, you can actually have like really awesome relationships with your customers. So uh, sustainable and predictable income with a small number of users or subscribers, or customers, doesn't matter. And it makes it easier to plan and create content for that buyer persona, because if you're in a business where you rely on one-off sales and then hoping for repeat business, and that's, that business works, but in the way I see things, it's just, if you have predictable set monthly, you can look on your dashboard of whatever billing platform you use and say, okay, this is how much I have to work with every month. Um, then that makes it easy for you to like build new products, because sort of what your framework is and what your budget is. So that helps a lot, and it also creates freedom for you, as opposed to ongoing freelance work or agency work, which I still do. I mean, I'm not bashing that model or anything. It's just there is value in creating a business that has recurring revenue that you can rely on solely. And then it's also, there are a lot of tools out there to enable automation if you have a recurring revenue business model. So let's look at that. So so the next step in our gem example, in our fictional characters, we just need to create a product or service that your 100 true fans will pay monthly for. So let's look at that. And by the way, I just wanted to add this slide in here. Almost anything can be a subscription now. So, I mean, you get dog treats and food, and so just because you don't sell a digital product doesn't mean that you need to be limited to, like, this is not just a thing for digital nomads. It can also be a thing where you can, I mean, you can even still be location independent if you have a physical product that you produce, if you have partners that can do fulfillment and delivery. So I believe almost anything can be a subscription. And I mean, I think if you have a look at some of the websites and stuff out there, especially the ads on podcasts lately, if you've listened to that, like so many things are now this much a month. And I think that's a great opportunity for people with like single entrepreneurs or small teams to look at. So, and obviously me and my team have built our whole business around this recurring revenue thing, where we have WordPress maintenance services. And a lot of companies out there are doing this too. One of my favorite ones is WP Buff's guy. That team is just awesome. So yeah, I think that's great. So I would also, for small teams or like single person startups, I would say go for low prices in your monthly fees. And sometimes you can have a very specific, like high, big ticket item business, but I find it easier to launch things that have a pretty small dollar amount that you can turn around. And I'll again reference our WordPress business. We don't charge like thousands of dollars a month, because we want to, like, makes it easier for the customer to make that purchasing decision. And we sometimes find that we'll lose money on one customer and make it back through customers that aren't as busy. So that's, I guess that is a business decision you'll have to make. But I recommend, if you can, look at starting something that has a sort of, especially if you're a first-time entrepreneur, starting something that has a sort of low dollar value. That also helps. So an example here is $5 a month per customer. So if you have 100 customers, that's $500 a month. That's $8,000 a month. That's, it's not a ton of money, but it's not, it's not nothing either. You can start to, lay the first brick of a foundation for yourself with that. And then hopefully one day grow your own little business to 1,000 customers or subscribers, or this can be users, subscribers, anything. If you get to 1,000, then that really becomes something you can really sustain a family off of. And if you build a scalable business, such as a content business, then managing 1,000 customers is not very difficult. You don't need like a huge support team to manage 1,000 customers of like a SaaS app or a content website. And obviously, in the one difference is for us in We Manage Your Site, we would be super busy if we had 1,000 customers on our WordPress maintenance plans. But for our the thing that I'm trying to build now, hopefully it works with this AR thing. If we have 1,000 customers using that app, then that's very low bandwidth to provide support for them. So there's tools that you can use to build this, and I'm going to dive into this in a bit. So you need a platform, like obviously we prefer WordPress, and you need something to manage your profiles and memberships. We use Paid Memberships Pro. I know there's Paid Memberships Pro members on this call. You don't have to just use that, but that's just what I prefer to use. And then you need something to handle your billing. So in South Africa, you would use PayFast. In the US or overseas, you would use something like Stripe or PayPal. And all of these are awesome platforms. So let's circle back to our example again of our guy who wants to start a streaming service for fish only. The first step he would do is he would set up a WordPress site where he can showcase his content. And as I said, this is not a technical training tutorial, but I will put some links to videos on the resource page if you need help to do that. And then the second step is to set up something that handles memberships and payments. So in my example, I would use something like Paid Memberships Pro and PayFast. So again, if you are unclear on how to do that, I'll leave a how-to video on how to set up Paid Memberships Pro on a WordPress site and how to link PayFast to that on the resource page. And then step 3, in our fictional character example, is add content and mark which levels have access. So if I was Jim, I would go like, okay, I'll just use Vimeo and upload videos of this specific, my carp fishing trips, and I'll use Vimeo and I'll embed that on posts and I'll mark these as requiring membership. And in a way, he sort of just built a little, streaming service with WordPress and Paid Memberships Pro. So you have a recurring revenue model and you have a niche market. So now you have both pillars of this. And then the last step would be, now, once you have something that you can market. And before I continue, there's this quote that I always hear from, I think it was Reid Hoffman. It says, don't worry if your very first product embarrasses you a little bit. In fact, it should. Like, it doesn't have to be super high quality stuff. Like, it's better to get started with something that works. If it's really targeted toward your niche, your customers are going to be okay with it. So then the next step would be to be in the presence of his targeted audience. So whenever he releases a new video, maybe post it to a Facebook group, but and don't discount real life events. Like if he's obviously in a niche market where you can go to events like competitions, or if we're talking about the vintage Lego guy, you can go to like those Lego expos. Obviously, when we're in the lockdowns lifted, but it doesn't necessarily just have to be online communities. You can go and find your customers. It's like it's an achievable goal. You don't have to just say, okay, I'm going to market online. Think about where they are and just go and talk to them. But be careful not to be spammy. So actually get involved in communities and also strike up conversations with people where you're not necessarily always selling something. Also consume the content that's on those communities and start making connections. Don't just spam links. So other thing you should always still do, you should be content marketing, and it's especially achievable if you are in this niche, like we said. So use Yoast and use blogs and just try and write targeted content with long tail keywords in a very specific niche, and eventually you will start to rank for it. But don't rely only on this. Direct outreach especially in the very beginning of starting something like this, will give you the easiest early wins. I keep using this fishing example, but it actually works. So I know what you're thinking. You're really going to build a Netflix clone with WordPress, Jim. If this was in real life, people would laugh. But yeah, I mean, we actually did this. I'll show you an example of something we did. This is like a super niche market, and I'm not necessarily referring to the content here or anything, but we used Paid Memberships Pro and Divi and WordPress, and we built like this website where people subscribe and they pay a monthly membership fee. And this is for one of our clients, by the way. And then they sign up with the WordPress user. A logged in user wouldn't see the WordPress bar, obviously. They create like a Netflix in air quotes account, and we look at other streaming services. We use the custom post type, and we built like a Netflix clone. But this specific niche market was for Afrikaans churches. Very very niche market. That works. And the customer clicks that little play button, and it just opens up like a Vimeo full screen view, and then you can go back. And this is just using custom post types. It uses Paid Memberships Pro for the user profile, and it uses Vimeo for the video and PayFast for collecting payments. And they did not do any marketing. They have a group of Afrikaans churches that they just threw a few announcements up, and they had quite a few customers sign up. And it hasn't been active that long yet, and they're doing quite well. So you can actually build a fishing streaming service with WordPress and Paid Memberships Pro and Vimeo. So I guess the crux of my point is become the best in a very narrowly defined category. Forget trying to get 0.1% of a huge market. Try to get as much as you can of a small, super niche, obscure market, and try to own that space so that huge companies like Netflix can't compete with Jim anymore because, at least in that one specific market. So his 1,000 true fans will also be far more loyal and engaged with his content because, if you find an obscure interest group or anything like that, people are passionate about that. I have an uncle who's a brony, and it's a very obscure, weird interest group, and they will consume all the content they can get on that. So for people that don't know, it's like a grown man who likes My Little Pony. It's very weird, but anyway. And lifestyle goals can be achieved with a relatively small customer base. So suddenly, in that one specific niche market, Netflix can't compete with Jim anymore because he owns that space. And that's why weird or obscure things. I was just looking around while I was preparing this talk about websites, just websites. It doesn't necessarily have to be WordPress sites, although as we've seen in that example with WordPress and Vimeo and Paid Memberships Pro and PayFast, it's pretty easy to get something going. So remember, we want to do low risk. You don't want to invest like 100,000 Rand and build this huge system that you think is going to work and then it doesn't work. So, start with something simple and see if it works. And even the most obscure hobbies or interests or passions have a dedicated following. There's 7 billion people in the world, and I think like I don't know the exact numbers, but I think like 3 billion of them are online, and there's like another 4 billion or something that needs to come online. So it doesn't matter how obscure your interest or an interest group is, there's going to be a sizable community around that. And because of the internet, it brings people together around a specific group. And if, and a bonus, if you're really interested about that topic, like Jen was interested in fishing, it's actually my business partner. His name is Gene. I built this whole website for fishing, and it works. He loves it. He has fun every day because he's making content for something he will be doing anyway. So if you can find the thing you enjoy doing, but you can somehow build a community or something around that, or identify some sort of problem in your hobby or interest, or in your wife's hobby or interest, or something that you identify, like, hey, there's this very specific group of people, and you know what really make that group great is if they had this, and then you build that, and then you see if it works. So there's the vintage Lego set, and then there's so many websites that just focus on guitar picks, or here's a website that only talks ukulele. So there are, and I mean that's not even super obscure. There's millions of people who like this stuff. So try and find your tribe. So I've put a resource page up at paymeagain.com. That's just a reference to recurring revenue. Although I will mention that some of the links and stuff I've mentioned here are not all up there yet, but the slides for this are up there right now. There's a link to download Pay Memberships Pro, and then there's also a you can embed. You just need to send me the embed for this YouTube video. I'll throw it up there as well.
Yeah, awesome. I'll add it to the description and show notes, so when people watch it again, they'll have access to all the resources.
Yeah, and there's a link on that where you can. It's just my Calendly link to book a Zoom call. So I've made like 2 hours of my day during this lockdown available. If people just wanted to chat to me about their ideas.
Oh, awesome.
And I'd it's like a 30-minute session. It's free, so no strings attached. Just tell me your idea, and then see if I can offer you some value.
Yeah, that's really awesome.
Yeah, and that's it. That's my talk.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Evan, for taking the time out to doing this. This was like one of the best talks I've been in personally. And I'm going to ask you for the next WordCamp to probably do this talk again.
Of course.
What we can do is maybe just wait like 2 to 3 minutes if anyone's got questions, because I know that the live stream is a little bit behind. There's like a bit of a delay when it actually gets to the viewers. So if anyone has questions for Evan, just drop them in the live chat section, and then I'll relay them. While we wait for that, a good example of a niche market or story behind that is Yuppie Chef. They, if I remember the story correctly, the people that started that, they were selling to friends and family only kitchen utensils. Like I heard, I think their first sale was like a wooden spoon, like a cooking spoon. And then, it just grew and the demand grew. And they're a good example of, crushing the niche market. They only do home/kitchen items.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they might go to shop for if I want something that's really nice for the kitchen. And they've actually stuck with like a tradition where you'll still get a handwritten thank you, postcard and fridge magnets with every purchase.
That's awesome. That's very cool.
And that was the nice thing when you said you can stay in touch with your customers. It really does make a difference. With that little personal touch, or if you can find something that's different from your competitors, it'll keep people coming back to you. So
yeah, no, I absolutely love that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So everyone says like it's super great content. Awesome talk. Great. Awesome. Thanks. So I'm just relaying that to you because you obviously not seeing the live chat. Um, so
Thanks
yeah.
again.
Okay. Cool. There's some questions coming through from Kyle. I have a question about scaling e-commerce.
Mm.
Anyone else find WooCommerce gets a bit clunky and heavy the larger the site gets? Is it not better to start in architecture designed for larger e-commerces such as BigCommerce or Magento, etc.? So if you want to take that one.
Yeah, well, I think that is. I've the biggest WooCommerce site I ever did was a site that sold attachments for DJI drones to drop fishing lures. I'm just not getting away from that. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. It was called dronefishing.com. They're no longer on WooCommerce, and that wasn't for any specific reason. That client did a contract with us, and we built a WooCommerce site.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he had like sometimes 50 to 70 orders a day on WooCommerce. That's the biggest I've seen. So I can't really speak about like massive scale
Mm-hmm.
WooCommerce websites because I've never worked with like a huge WooCommerce website.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, now that actually no, there was one other one, thegatefilm.com, which is a film that came out about a documentary. You know, it was like a movie, and you could buy the DVD online. And I think the most they did at one point was like 200 or 300 orders a day through WooCommerce,
Mm-hmm.
and the site was fine. Um,
Yeah.
uh,
I've also got a personal story. I worked on a site with the variations in that. I think it was close to 8,000 products.
mhm.
So I mean, you can imagine the database gets pretty large.
Yeah.
I think the database alone was like 3 gigs. It might have been bigger. I can't remember now.
Yeah.
And they turned over I think R1 million in the first year after the rebuild. Um,
Mhm.
and the site holds up fine. I think a lot of it comes to play with like what custom code you're running, what PHP version you're running, what host you're on,
Oh, the host. Yeah.
how you handling
Yeah.
caching and stuff. I've seen like it's just changing hosts on my personal websites made a night and day difference. If you just go from like a general shared host to like a WordPress managed host that does like caching on the server level and stuff like that, that can be a huge improvement already. Um, so yeah, I guess that's also like a talk for another day because we could literally spend like 2 hours talking like on how to optimize
Yeah.
and improve your site.
Yeah. Well, I think just to answer Carl's, well, not answer Carl's question, but just to comment on it, I think some of the largest websites in the world are WordPress sites. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think there's like a limit to how big a WooCommerce site can be.
Mm-hmm.
But I just haven't worked with like a massive one myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, with that, so for those that don't know, I work for Paid Memberships Pro, and our user base is 120,000 registered users on our WordPress site, which is quite a large amount of users. Like the search queries when you like in the admin do die now and then, and we're in the process of optimizing it more. But it is achievable. It's that whole idea of you shouldn't have so many plugins running. We're running about I think close to 70 active plugins as well.
Mm.
But again, we're running a custom droplet from DigitalOcean, so we can kind of scale as we need. Um, and we got people on the team that handle the whole like configuration of how many users you're allowed concurrently on the website and things like that. So when you start scaling to these large sites, it really is the matter of fine tuning the really nitty gritty settings of your server in a sense. Like I would
Yeah.
definitely say like get your own like dedicated host. Don't do like any shared hosting if you're on a really massive site. Get a full control of your server, get root access, and then you can actually start bumping up the RAM to like 20 gigs, and
Yeah.
have like 200 concurrent users running at the same time. Make sure your caching's working, and your site should be fine. But again,
Yeah.
it's a lot of trial and error at the end of the day. I do find like WooCommerce, and we even admitted at Paid Memberships Pro that our software isn't actually built for like these low end shared hosting solutions. Because there's a lot of things running in the back end that you won't see on the front end, but like WooCommerce has to send the payment, receive the status of the payment, then create the order, change the status of the order, create the user on checkout maybe. So there's a lot of moving parts to like an e-commerce or membership type of site, which takes a lot of resources by default. So definitely
Yeah.
check your host. I would say that's a good starting point in my personal opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, I'll wait like one more minute to see if there's any questions, just to let the chat catch up. Other than that, we'll probably just end the call. And then again, just join the WordPress Slack group. It's wpsouthafrica.org to get your invites. Join the Slack. Even myself and like I don't know how many other hundreds of WordPress people are on there and available
It's a lot.
daily to chat. You can actually reach out to the WooCommerce guys directly if you're not on the Slack already. You can kind of ask them for tips on scaling. They'll probably know the product a lot better than myself. So yeah, join our Slack. We'll be posting the next meetups once we confirm that with the Cape Town team. And then yeah, we'll just carry on growing the community and sharing stuff as we go and as we learn. That's what it's about.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much. And I just also want to add, there's a few more links and stuff I'll add to this website. But yeah, feel free to reach out to me. I'm here to help as well.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Evan. It's been a real good talk. It's been awesome to chat with you.
Thank you.
Okay, one more question from Carl before we go off. It's okay if you jump through the slides. He's just asking if others here are doing any drop shipping or derivatives of it. So even if you know of any drop shipping services, things like that, feel free.
Yeah.
If not, join the Slack.
Yeah, I feel like I missed out on that one. I heard that term so many times, drop shipping, but I just never dropped in on that. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I don't have that much to, like, I don't want to speak out of something I don't have experience in.
No, that's perfect. I was just relaying the
Yeah.
question just in case.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, Rudy, just to answer your question, we are doing Zoom between the speakers and the organizers. We figured a YouTube live stream would be an easier barrier to enter for people, because I'm also using Zoom for maybe my third time, and whenever I try to join a Zoom chat without the software, it would make me download it. So we just figured that YouTube would be a better channel for the general public, because I mean everyone's got YouTube on their phone, you can watch it on your phone and stuff. We might do a Zoom webinar maybe the next time, or things like that. So just to answer your question. Cool, awesome. So I'm gonna end it here, guys. I'm gonna stop the stream. Join wpsouthafrica.org for Slack. Thanks to Ivan again for taking the time out. I know doing presentations and talks, it's not only the 1 hour talk that you've actually done, it's weeks of prep and all of that. So thanks again. And then thank you once again for our sponsors, which is PayFast, Xneelo. I have to slow down on that one a bit. PayFast, Xneelo, FlickerLeap, and uAfrica for supporting the local communities in WordPress. So yeah, check your guys on Slack, and then yeah, we'll check you later.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Cool. Cheers. I need to stop this. Yeah, I actually couldn't get my second screen to work, unfortunately, and I was out of time to like restart. I actually had
Ah,
like I had a second screen.